Hello, 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 hello. Today, we are going to be talking about the fabulous Winchester House. For those of you that are new here, this is Down the Rabbit Hole. So please hit that like button, ring that bell for notifications. Also, please subscribe. Here on Down the Rabbit Hole, we talk about a lot of different stuff. A lot. And I take pride in that because I am what's what I'm looking for? Connoisseur of learning. Connoisseur of learning. That's a good word. I like learning stuff. I like knowing things about history and life and in general. I like paranormal history. I like a lot of stuff. So, with that being said, we are talking about the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California. And this was once the personal residence of Miss Sarah Winchester. Um, the widow of a firearms magnate, William Wirt Winchester, and the house became a tourist attraction of 9 months, just 9 months after his Winchester's death in 1922. Now, the Victorian Gothic style mansion is renowned for its size and architectural curiosities. Look, okay, sorry. For numerous myths and legends surrounding the structure for the former owner. Now, let's talk about Miss Sarah Winchester, shall we? Sarah also was always called Sally after her paternal grandmother was born in 1839 in New Haven, Connecticut. She married William Wart Winchester in 1862, and in 1866 she gave birth to a little girl named Annie Party Winchester, who was diagnosed with Maramus, and she did not thrive or lived only a month. Now, between the fall of 1880 and the spring of 1881, Winchester's mom, father-in-law, and husband all died. Interesting. And she was left with a large inheritance from her husband. In 1884, her eldest sister, Mary Converse, died, and around this time she began developing rheumatoid arthritis. And her doctor suggested that a warmer climate might help her improve her health. And in 1885, at the age of 46, she moved to California from New Haven. And according to Mary Jo Ignofo, in her book Captive from the Labyrinth, um, her happiest memories of traveling were to San Francisco with her husband in the 1870s. An advertisement about the weather and health benefits of California were possible factors in her decision to move. Now, she invited her three remaining sisters to follow her to California, and they did. In 1886, a man by the name of Edward Rambo, who went by Ned, was a San Francisco agent for the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, who took Winchester on a tour of the Santa Clara Valley to look at a home. And he showed her about a 40-acre ranch for sale, which was located near San Jose. She got the property, and from John Ham, which included a 2-story, 8-room farmhouse, and since the property reminded her of Leonardo Alvisa from the Basque area, she named her home Leonardo Villa. Now, in 1890, her niece, Miriam Merriman, who was called Daisy, around the age of 21, came to live with her. Now, Merriman became Winchester's personal secretary, looking after her business correspondence and banking. They attended charitable events together and were paying members of the Associated Charities and Red Cross. In 1903, Winchester paid for Daisy's wedding to Frederick Marilaw. Let me try it one more time. Frederick Marlatt III. That same year, she purchased several homes and properties in Atherton. One of the homes was offered to Daisy for her and her husband to live in, which they accepted. Now, she's subsequently purchased a home for a couple closer to the train station for Frederick to travel from. In 1904, Winchester purchased a large property near the hamlet of Burlingame, near the North Coyote Point. Then brought a houseboat, or ark, as they were called in the time, instead of building a house. Now, Sarah died September 7, 1922, at the age of 83. Now, let's talk about the home renovations. Winchester and her husband developed an interest in architecture and interior design. While building a home in Prospect Hill in New Haven, White Plains expanded farms. Winchester hired at least two architects but dismissed them, deciding to do the planning herself. She designed the rooms one by one, supervised the projects, and sought advice from carpenters she hired. She took inspiration. Um, she took inspiration for the house from the World's Fair that was common then. And while the homes were similar to the scope of other things, among other things, it was unusual for women to look after a project and such. Colin Dickey states that his book Ghostland, in American History and Haunted Places, she could be considered an architectural pioneer of her time. And y'all know I love me learning about some women who make history. Just saying. Um, I believe history is important. I believe that women have paved the way for years and they've just been overlooked for years. And now we live in a place where women are getting recognized for all of that. Anyway, back to this episode, shall we? She was known to rebuild and abandon construction if the progress did not meet her expectations, which resulted in a maze like design. And in the San Jose News in 1897, it was reported that a 7-story tower was torn down and rebuilt 16 times as a result of her expansion. There are walled off exterior windows and doors that were removed as the house grew in size. Multiple levels, up to 5, were added into different parts of her home. The design was essentially Victorian with elements of Gothic and Romanesque features. Y'all know I love me a good Gothic element. Yes, I know. Something's wrong with me. But anyway, um, there was carved wood on the ballroom floor, walls, and ceilings, which would leak maple and mahogany, which were intricate patterns of the ballroom floor, which was a large brick fireplace that was framed by two windows that included quotes from Shakespeare. The second floor had bedrooms that had adjoining sitting rooms and sewing rooms, and the walls covering had leather of metal appearances known as lint-crusted wall coverings. Now the ceilings had molding, stencils, and faux finishes, and there were chandeliers from Germany, art glass from Austria, furnishings from Asia, and paintings from France. And Annicator, which was an early form of an intercom, which was a common feature in large homes at this time period, were installed for calling service. Indeed, there existed the indoor garden and the slanted doors that carry excess water to trap water, which pipes water through the outdoors. Now, a generator was installed for a water pump because of the Winchester's height, 4 feet 10 inches, and of in health issues, a stairway was built that had 44 steps but risen only 10 feet. Now let's talk about this stairway now. I would love to go visit this house one day. If I ever get out to San Jose. If I ever get out to San Jose. Now, the windows are unusual since they are pastel colors, asymmetrical to their design, and have sharp bevels. The windows on the upper levels has spiderweb tracery, a popular design then, and the windows to the right and to the left of the brick fireplace were Shakespearean quotations from Richard II and Troilus and Cressida, and it has been claimed by tour guides and articles over the years that the windows were made by Tiffany and Company, despite the fact that the company was rarely used bevel glass. Now, the style of window is also seen in Greg Duroche Castle in British Columbia, prompting architectural historian Jim Wolfe to believe that the house, um, that the glass art is, that the windows were made by the same company. Now, Wolf determined um, that the glass artist John Melton from Alexander Dunsmith Company, a Pacific American decorative company, was in an envelope postmarked July 1894, which had the seal of Dunsmith Company and scribbled notes that appears to be on Winchester's hand and was discovered in the wall. Now, many of the glass art were purchased in the installed. Now, Winchester would take breaks from the construction on a regular basis to rest, sometimes for months, and she would tire easily. Sorry, y'all, my throat is sore, so I'm having to sip water as I go, but I've been trying to get this recorded for a while. Don't hate me, I've been busy working and had other projects going on. But anyway, it is slow construction considerably and is considered to be claims made in articles by tour guides that she had the house under construction for around 38 years until her death in 1922. At its largest, the house had approximately 500 rooms. Yeah. Now, as claimed by Bruce Spoon, who was a student at San Jose State College, who decided to write his master thesis on about Winchester in 1951, the reasons for building her house were to keep her workers employed to express her artistic vision. Mhm. He also reached a conclusion after interviewing people who remembered her and reviewing the newspapers. Now, there was an earthquake in 1906 that happened in San Francisco, and the Liana Villa was severely damaged, though there were some rumors that Winchester was trapped in San Jose home. There is no evidence of this. She owned several homes in California, and after the earthquake, spent most of her time at her home in Atherton. In the seven-story tower, most of the chimneys collapsed. One wing was destroyed, and along with the third and fourth story additions, Winchester had the rubble removed, but had little more done to the property after the earthquake. It had left it that open to nothing with balconies had once been pipes that were protruding from the windows were boxes, and the staircase had been removed. Pipes were also where the windows once were. Now in 1910, due to failing health, Sarah did not work on her San Jose home except for odd maintenance jobs, and adding an elevator in 1916. At the time, she dedicated her time to finances and building an investment portfolio. Mary Jo Ignacio claims that she was more successful constructing an investment portfolio than a mansion. Now, when Winchester died in 1922, the house had 160 rooms, 2,000 doors, 10,000 windows, 47 fireplaces, 13 bathrooms, and 6 kitchens. Ooh, imagine the cleaning up that had to take. Now, when did this become a tourist attraction? Well, the house became a tourist attraction 9 months after her death in 1922, and the house was in disrepair and considered to be of no monetary value. And a group of investors of the property subsequently leasing the house to John and Mame Brown, who turned it into an attraction. And they later purchased the house in 1931. There were many rooms and deletions made on the home after her death. Now, the first tour guide of the house was Mame Brown. Past neighbors, friends, and workers for Winchester were distressed when they heard about the superstitious claims being made about the house in Winchester and were upset when the Browns were making money off the falsehood. Now, they described Winchester as clear-headed, savvier with her finances, and business than most men were. In 1924, Harry Houdini, yes, that Harry Houdini, briefly visited the house and was reportedly impressed by her unusual layout and architectural novelties, but could not make a detailed investigation because of not pressing engagements. Now, according to some accounts, Houdini suggested tour operators employing Winchester Mystery House as a promotional name to the property. Now, when Keith Kittle became a general manager in 1973, the house was in poor shape. He had the house renovated in the 70s and 80s and made a Winchester Rifle Museum. He sought historical landmark status and began advertising that included billboards along the highway. And the billboards featured a silhouetted house with implications that the ghost encounter was possible. Attendance increased as he could play off the history and superstition that was already circulating. Kittle was a general manager until 1996. Hey, that's my birth year. Um, Now, let's talk briefly about the Winchester Rifle Museum. Um, As of September 2022, the house is owned and operated by Winchester Mystery House, which is a private company that represents the descendants of the Browns. And captive of the labyrinth of Mary Jo wrote that tour guides are required to follow the script, emphasizing fabrications and inaccuracies. According to NAFCO, one guy's laminated. I feel so torn that I have to tell people untruths every time I go to the house. Now let's talk about the legend and the lore. Um, right? So, her story has been embellished over the years. It has various rumors, hyperboles, and myths. And popular writers have misrepresented and invented details of the house and the owner in order to enhance the legend. Um, Now, what about the inheritance? Well, claims to Winchester inheriting that as much as 20 million, as earning 1,000 per day in royalties from the inheritance can be to tourist literature purchased the Winchester Mystery House. Iguffo in Nuffo states that her husband's estate in 1881 was 362,000, which is equal to 11 million today. But the amount included approximately 300,000 of stock that Winchester would only inherit when her mother-in-law died, which was not until 1898. With the addition of her husband Winchester's repeating arms company shares, she had a total of 777 shares valuing 77,000, which paid in dividends of 7,770 annually between 1880 and 1895. Now let's talk about the move into California now. Well, myths around her decision to move to the East Coast of California are thought to have originated from author Susie Smith. Um, Prominent American Ghost, published in 1967. Now, in Smith's version of events, Winchester visited a medium in Boston named Adam Coons, who told her that she and her family were being haunted by ghosts of the people were killed by Winchester rifles, and that she must construct a house for three ghosts, and that she must never complete the project. Now, the assertion of Winchester meeting with a medium has been repeated in brochures and articles since. According to Mary Jo, which was while it's possible that Winchester did meet with a psychic medium, since it was a common practice of women for status in that time, there are no evidence that she did. Emily Mace, who is a scholar, and others have looked through the Banner of Light, which was a spiritual periodical in the Boston City Directories, who listed them, and no one named Adam Coons can be found. Now let's talk about this never-ending construction. I get it. Some people just, when they get an idea in their head, that's what they have to go with. Look at Pamela Anderson's first husband. He changed his mind so many times about his beach house that he ended up firing him and going with a different company, for crying out loud. Anyway, beginning in 1895, Winchester started appearing in newspapers and articles, and local newspapers found speculation about Winchester and the ongoing construction of her San Jose home. Her lack of interaction with neighbors are known for the fact came in superstitious narratives. Despite large ornate homes being commonly built by wealthy, the newspapers declared that the reason for the construction would stop. The theory would eventually stories that she believed she would die if the construction stopped. Um, yeah. But yeah, guys. Now let's talk briefly about the labyrinth construction. Um, this believes that the Winchester home built her house in a strange maze-like manner to confuse to keep spirits from harming her, and her sanity in the mid-1680s had grown upscale since, and the doors and the windows and everything were unusually high. Now the bell tower was called was used to call a workman to serve as a fire alarm on the property, and according to Joe Nickel, Fanciful claims later arose that it was used to summon spirits. And according to ghostly music, well, according to Joe Nickel, claims that local residents would hear ghostly music coming from the house, or explained to be the fact that Winchester often played the pump organ in the grand ballroom when she was unable to sleep. Now, there's something also called about parties for spirits. Well, according to Joe Nickel, claims that Winchester held parties for the spirits that offered lavish served and everything. There was also gun guilt. And at the turn of the 20th century, the most common belief that still persists regarding her house building was that she felt tremendous guilt for resulting from deaths caused by the Winchester rifles and everything. Now, let's go into her health and superstition, shall we? A novel paranormal investigator, Joe Nickel, reported that as Winchester aged, particularly after 1900s, her health grew worse, which included arthritis, missing teeth, and neuritis, and everything. Now let's talk about the presidents, shall we? Well, Winchester twice declined to host U.S. presidents. First in 1901 with William McKinley visiting in the committee and everything else. Then presidents and his official coaches drove past the mansion without stopping. Second in 1903 was Theodore Roosevelt. And everything. Now let's talk about the number 13. For a lot of people, they believe that is bad luck. For Taylor Swift, that's her lucky number. Sorry, my Swiftie came out. Um, but according to lore, architectural features such as 13 bedrooms and windows, and certain rooms due to Winchester's appearance fascination with number 13. However, according to carpenter James Perkins, the more irregular features which have been in the house since famed Audley was built after her death, the first time was apparent superstition appeared in an article in 1929. It has also been mentioned that the articles about her house, too. There also have been like nightly seances and several hauntings as well. Um, but yeah. Okay, that is it for this episode. Join me next time as we talk about to fill the screens. We are gearing up to finish these 12 episodes. Like I said, I've got almost all of them recorded, so it's just a matter of getting everything uploaded. So, because I've got more podcasts I gotta get done, and I also have more topics coming up. Now, the next 12 after this one is gonna be historical and folk, like haunting and folklore. So, that's gonna be what we go into for the next 12 after we finish episode 156. But I'll see y'all next time.